Our first session today is documentation by IT folks who can't write good and want to learn to do other support good too. Zoolander GIF here by Kelly Guimont. Hello. Fantastic
Hi.
to have you. Thank you.
I'd love to say it's nice to see everybody, but I can't really see most of you. So I'm just going to say hi and hope that you're all happy to see me too.
Fantastic. Go ahead and share your slides and we'll put those onto the stream.
Okay, and let's see if I can share effectively through the magic of Teams. Let's see if this works. Okay. I hope that's working.
It's looking good. Yes. Thank you. Go ahead.
So generally, I don't like to read my slides, but since this is actually the title of my talk, I thought I should make an exception. So hello and welcome to my talk, which is, as Rusty just told you, documentation by IT folks who can't write good and want to learn to do other support good too. Zoolander GIF here. I would also like to point out that this talk is based entirely on a conversation in the MacAdmins Slack. And it's my fault because I made a smart aleck comment about how this would be a great name for a talk. And here we are. And I did tell you it was Zoolander GIF here, and a promise is a promise. So here you go. If you're wondering who I am, my name is Kelly. Hi. As Rusty told you earlier, I'm the operations manager at Technolutionary. I also host a number of podcasts. So if you close your eyes and listen, I might sound familiar, even if you don't know what I look like. And I've been doing support in various capacities for a very, very long time. One thing I know about lots of people that I've worked with and people that I've done other projects with over the years is that some people don't dig documentation, and that's okay. You don't have to, but even if you don't, you can still create some that works really well and is able to help other people, including future you, down the line. And sometimes it's just sort of unavoidable. If you're the person that's testing out a tool, or if you're the primary contact for something that's going on as some project that you're working on, it might be up to you to do it. And I'm hoping that part of why you're here is to figure out how to make some of that useful and effective without having it take up all of your time. And I promise you, it's not even as hard as working in the mines. So one of the things that really helps with creating documentation is being able to illustrate those things. And one of the ways that you can illustrate that is by using screenshots. And there are so many things that you can do with screenshots, and so many ways that you can take a screenshot that could be interesting. I've listed some of them here. You don't have to write them down. The slides will be available later. You'll have these tips available. But these are just the ones that I could fit next to my Zoolander GIF on this particular slide. This doesn't even cover, if you hold down the Option key with any of these, that you will not get the drop shadow behind the back of your screenshot. Or if you use the space bar with some of these options, you can capture a menu item or just the active window. And when you launch the screenshot app with all of those options, you can change the format of the file if PNG is not for you. If you want to change the location of where those things go, then there are a lot of things available to you, and it's really worth your time to spend a few minutes learning a couple of these, and being able to use them later will be very, 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 very helpful. Future you will be very happy that past you spent a little bit of time learning a couple of interesting keyboard shortcuts. Even more information about screenshots is that you can take them on basically anything. I would have included the Apple TV here, but as soon as I was looking up how to take a screenshot, it turned into like AirPlay and Xcode, and I think there was chanting involved. And so I skipped that one and just assumed, like, if you have an Apple TV, you probably have some sort of mobile communicator, and you could probably just take a picture of the TV with that and call it good. One thing that sometimes gets overlooked is that you don't need a separate app for marking up your screenshots. Preview has loads of things in it, including the most basic of make a shape, make an arrow so that you can point to the thing that somebody needs to click on, or highlight that thing in system preferences because it moves every version of macOS, and you can change all of those. You can even create a video if you want to. QuickTime Player on a brand new M1 machine, you can still use QuickTime Player, and you can make a screen recording and show the set of actions that you want somebody to go ahead and perform. And even in there, if you go to edit, you can take off the ends of that. So you can do a basic edit and kind of shimmy that down. And then you can even save that and create a GIF if you want to for other sorts of purposes. If you need to put it on a web page or email it to people easily, you can create a GIF and make that happen if you want to. Yes, Higgins, we know. So the thing you really want to do with the stuff that you have is figure out how to be the most effective, not the most efficient, and not necessarily even the most useful, but the most effective, so that you're getting the maximum bang for the buck, the time that you're spending on creating some of the documentation that you're making. So what's your threshold? My threshold for when I need to either, save something forever or automate a thing, one of those, my threshold is 3. So the first time I do it, like, it's the thing that needs to happen, and so now I'm gonna get it done. And then the second time is like, I had to do this once before, but I'm gonna do it again and it's fine. And then the third time is when I start rolling my eyes and sighing that deep IT worker sigh of like, I can't believe I'm having to do this again. And that's usually the trigger that means I need to figure out how to do it to death this time so that I never have to do it anymore. So I will answer the stuff out of that email in this case, so that I don't ever have to answer that email again, because I can save that reply and I can apply it in other ways. If there's canned replies in the ticketing system that you use, or if you use an application like I do that we'll talk about later, or if you have other sorts of ways that you can sort of save that information in some sort of repository, you want to make sure that those are things that you're doing. Once you figure out, like, I'm really tired of doing this thing, figure out how you can make it so that you don't have to do it again. And whether it's sending out the same blob of text in a bunch of different contexts, or automating something in a script that you can do, or spending a little bit of time learning about an API that you can use to save yourself a bunch of time, figure out what that point is and sort of have an eye out for it so that you find the opportunities to automate some of those things. Do you have a system? One of the other things you should have is some sort of system where you can keep all of those things. And one of them is, do you have one now? If you're using a ticketing system, like I talked about a minute ago, does it have a knowledge-based feature that you could be using? Or do you have a wiki? Or do you use GitHub and use the GitHub documentation side to store some of that information? Because if you're doing those things, then at least there's a tool that you already have and you're not sending people to yet another place to get information, or sending people to look something up in some new other thing. Like, if it's already a tool that you're using, then just go ahead and keep using that if you can. If you don't have a personal system for this sort of stuff, you should get one, even if it's go to the desktop, make a new folder and call it data or info or support or whatever, docs, whatever it is. Create a folder and start with that. I mean, all of them start somewhere. So if you are creating your own personal system for knowledge, if you're in an all 365 place, maybe OneNote's a convenient option for you. You can use Apple Notes, you can use text edit files, anything like that. Whatever it is, just make sure that you have a place where you can dump all of that stuff, because like indexed search, Spotlight search, OneNote search, if you're using a tool with a web platform, a lot of the indexing is really, really good now. And when I got into this, it was really hard to search for anything. And so you kind of had to make sure that you knew what the thing was you were looking for, because using search was really never going to get that back to you again. So search is a lot easier now. So you can search like within all of those text files. Just make sure you have them kind of all in one place, so that when it's time to migrate them to some other shared tool, it'll be easy to do. Do you have a team up option? And what I mean by that is, do you have someone else that you can work with? Maybe you work with somebody who really likes writing documentation. Like I realized that basically nobody here works with me, but I like writing documentation. I think it's fun. I think it's enjoyable, and it's a thing that I can do in an approachable way. And so somebody who doesn't necessarily have all of the technical knowledge that I do should be able to follow along with something that I write for them. And so I like that. And so maybe you can find someone that you work with who likes writing documentation, who is effective at doing it. And maybe you can work something out where they write a little more documentation and you take a little something off of their plate. Everyone wins. The thing you don't want to do is reinvent the wheel. So if there is a system you can use, start there and kind of try to do it. And if not, make sure that you're not doing the thing that you already need to be doing somewhere else. You know, like I said, if you have an existing system, use that until you outgrow it. If you don't have anything, I'm sorry, but unfortunately that's a different talk. Hopefully somebody will do a talk like that when we can all get together in person again. But until then, some of the things that you need to know are some of the stuff I already talked about. If you don't have a system, just get one, and then find a way to share it with the other people that you work with who have to do it. And the thing that I want to say very, very, very sincerely about all of it is be specific. And I'm gonna go ahead and put that here. Hopefully everyone else hears the title on this slide the way it sounds in my head, which is be specific, be specific. Just like if you are testing a script, or if you have to test a piece of software, or you're beta testing a version of macOS or something like that, you need to test your documentation the same way. So what I write as personal notes for myself in order to complete a task is going to help me because I wrote it, and it's just enough for me to help trigger whatever it is so that I remember what I need to do. But if I hand that document to Rusty doesn't have the wiring in my brain that I have. So Rusty's going to look at that and it will make zero sense to him. So make sure that when you give somebody, if somebody else is going to need to read your documentation, that they can start from absolute zero and be able to follow it all the way through. And I have an example on here. And the other thing that is very specific about this is don't forget the after. So if the thing that you have to do involves a physical item, I need to go and I need to get this phone from somewhere and do a thing, and make sure you say where it is, and then make sure you put at the end, like the last step of your documentation is put it back where it came from, whatever it might be. Or, if you're doing something on a computer and you have to run a script to do something, make sure you do whatever the next thing is to close that out and sort of leave things the way that you found them, so that it doesn't end up being something that's left in some sort of uncertain state later, and then someone else comes across it and has no idea what's happening. So you kind of want to make sure that you completely close that loop. Part of the reason that you want to do this is because all of it will make your life better. So you end up asking people the same sorts of questions anyway, no matter what you're doing, right? So when did it last work? Has anything changed recently? Have you restarted? All those kinds of things are very basic things that people end up having to ask a lot, no matter what the situation might be. So if you write out all the steps really well one time, you may be able to repurpose some of that as sort of a generic checklist of questions that you can sort of kick off to somebody and then get back better information. Because if you sit down and answer every question, answer every ticket or incoming request or whatever every single time, you might forget, oh, I didn't ask what changed that time, or the 3 other people who had this issue have all run a system update, and now I forgot to ask if they've run a system update lately or something like that. And if you have all of that in the documentation or in something automated that you're giving people anyway, then you don't have to worry about it. So I personally use I use Text Expander for this because I did at one point work for Smile Software. I did Text Expander support, and because I like a lot of the extensibility that comes out of that. It will run scripts for you. You can create fill-in documentation. So I have different automated messages that I send out to people, and sometimes it's about how much space is on their hard drive and how much space they need to free up. So I can just put in the number. So I expand the snippet, it pops up, and and it gives me a little box. I can put, you need to free up 10 gigabytes, and then send the message, and all the rest of it, looks really nice. It's well formatted, and all I had to do was type a few small keystrokes. If all you need is straight text for that sort of automation, then all you have to do is, I keep getting distracted by David Bowie over there. If all you need is to be able to send text out to people easily, you already have this available. If you're using a Mac or if you're using an iOS device, there are keyboard shortcuts that you can use. And allegedly they will sync. There are a certain number of them in there already, like OMW is one that shows up that says on my way. And you can add other things there easily as well. It is alleged that they sync. I have not seen that, but it's a thing that you can do. And if you have to set, if you're sending out the same things all the time to people, then this is a very easy way to do that. And another thing that I like it for is not just I need to send 4 paragraphs of email to somebody, but something very small. The company I work for is called Technolutionary, and that's a lot of letters, and it's very easy to type it wrong. And even when I type it correctly, sometimes autocorrect disagrees with me. So I have a snippet for Technolutionary, and so when I have to type it, which is a lot, then I know I've spelled it right every time. I know it's spelled right, even if I was typing on my phone and maybe I'm a little less accurate there. The same shortcut works every place, and so I know I'm good. So even for very small things, it works pretty well. And you can, if you have other needs for those sorts of things, there's probably other automation that is available to you. And like I said earlier, it's just a matter of sort of taking a second and looking around to see what you can get from that. And part of that is because I know sometimes it feels like you don't have time to learn a new tool or learn how to set something up to use an API if that's what you're doing, or learn enough about a particular scripting situation so that you can write the script to do the thing for you all the time. But when you think about it for a minute, a lot of times that hour or even 2 that you put into that is going to pay off not only for the problem you're trying to solve right now, but also for other things down the line. So the next time you have to do something similar, maybe you've done 60% of that work already, and it's just a matter of making a few adjustments to make that work for you. And then that comes out to be something that can be a lot more helpful going forward. And plus, now you've learned a new skill. And I also enjoy doing that sort of thing. So to me, that's also kind of fun to learn how to do it and then have the thing work that first time through is pretty awesome, whether it's a script or being able to make an API request from something that's a system I've not had to do that with before. Those are things that I generally enjoy doing. And I also like doing it because if I can do that instead of having to open a web page and click on these same 18 things every time and sit there and sort of going, this is grating at my soul as I sit here and click those 18 things that I have to click twice a week or whatever it is. Spending that couple of hours means I don't have to do that anymore. And now when I have to perform that same task and I've automated a big bunch of it, first of all, it takes way less time. And I spend all of that time smiling about how I don't have to do all of the checkboxes and fill in the form by hand anymore. It's great. Think about it. Like future you will always be so grateful to past you for having spent that little bit of time with that little bit of tools. And one of the other side benefits of being somebody who will sit down and bust out some effective documentation is that it makes you a good community member. So you're now a contributor to a community like the MacAdmins community, which I have enjoyed being part of. I've not been a part of the MacAdmin community for a very long time, but it's one of the ways that I feel like I can help that because I'm not a person who develops a lot of code. I don't do a ton of scripting, and being able to document a feature of something in particular or document how I solved a particular problem is only going to get more useful. And in fact, just today, I had a conversation with somebody about on more than one occasion, if you're even just mediocre at taking notes when you figure out a problem or figure out a workaround for something that happened, being able to go and look for the answer. Like I feel like I've done this before, and then finding out that I wrote up the answer for it in the first place the last time it happened. That's something else that I have found that has been very helpful. And it was nice to talk to somebody else who's had that same thing. Like, I thought I had solved this already, but I couldn't, but like, it wasn't in my brain. And then I found it. And yet another side benefit of being a person who even does a mediocre job of documenting that sort of thing is that then you end up being able to free up all of that brain space that you were using to carry around all of these solutions and all of these workarounds. And, you know, what is that thing that I have to do every year when we change the clocks because it's not quite the time that it used to be? And, you know, like it happens at a different point in the year. And so now I have to, you don't have to worry about any of that anymore. And you can free up that space for, you know, Star Wars trivia and how you're going to theorize about what happens next in the MCU. Like, those are important things. And those are the things you want to carry around in your brain. It's not, you know, what is the thing I have to type at the command line on the third Monday in November? Like, that's not the stuff that's generally the things you want to be carrying around with you. That's what I have found. So I want to talk for a minute about contributing to the community. I find this a really good way to contribute to the community because a lot of things are software-based or script-based or something like that, where there's documentation, where there's a tool available or there's a new feature in a tool, but there's not a lot of documentation around it. So if you're not already familiar with that particular thing, then it can be hard to sort of get into it because you're not really sure like how this new piece or this new add-on is going to make anything better or more useful for you. And Greg Nagel wrote about this over on his website, talking about how there's you know, generational change that's happening in the community. And as a person who's been a member of a number of communities over time, it's nice to see that this is something that's being recognized. And this also, as people retire and stop being quite so active community members, one of the nice things is that it then gives other people the opportunity to step up and become somebody who's part of that community. And sometimes that turnover is great. And it can also open doors where maybe you didn't think you had a place to be contributing before. But if you sit down and document that thing you did with that solution that you have and put it out in the world where other people can use it, then someone else who comes across that problem is going to find that and be very, very grateful to you. And that feels awesome. I am a person that people come to for answers a lot. Usually it's on a personal level, like I'm family IT. Which I'm sure surprises people out there. But when somebody comes to me and says, this is the thing that's going on and I'm able to help them fix it and they're grateful, that's a really good feeling. And that dopamine hit is really, really nice to have. So that's sort of the side benefit of doing all of this is like, you know, there's a lot of good things about it. You know, not just being able to like walk around in a sequin jacket like Derek over here. So that's basically it for me. I just want to say thanks to everybody. Thank you to PSU MacAdmins for having me, for putting up with me and letting me talk today. Thank you to the MacAdmins Slack. You brought this on yourselves. And I want to thank all of you for being very patient and listening to me. And also, hopefully, appreciating my work and making sure that Zoolander Gift here was pretty legit through the bulk of my presentation. So. I think that's going to do it for me, but I am available for questions, and I'm happy to take questions about documentation and about automating some of the things that you have to do around documentation, and also about Star Wars and Doctor Who and MCU and all that sort of thing. So,
fantastic, Kelly. Thank you. Well, the first question we have is, where can we get a T-shirt like that?
Good news and bad news. It's from Panic, but Panic doesn't sell Panic software, but they don't sell T-shirts anymore. So,
well, email them. I guess you have to pressure them to start up again.
Yeah, if someone else wants to get into the waiting gear T-shirt business, there's definitely an opportunity. I just thought it might be the right one for today. I had a hard time being a. I did put effort into making sure I was wearing an appropriate shirt to talk today, so I'm glad it went over well.
Tobias would like to know why everyone hates drop shadows in screenshots.
It's not necessarily that I hate them, but I find that sometimes it limits their use because then it doesn't end up being quite square. And like if you're just trying to put it On a plain web page, it's hard because then the drop shadow sort of looks funny and not everything renders it very well. And so like I've put a screenshot with a drop shadow into like a KBC, you know, the knowledge base part of a ticketing system. It's been a few years ago, so maybe it's better now, but it's a thing that sometimes is rendered with varying degrees of accuracy and therefore success. And it can also make it weird if you're trying to space text around a particular image when the image isn't just square. Like the rounded corners are fine, but when you have to add that weird little extra bit at the bottom and you're just trying to move the text up a tiny bit, sometimes it can be a giant pain in the neck.
Gotcha. All right. And then from Anonymous, we have a paraphrase from Scotty. We do not need to read the documentation, just read the source code. And if you are lucky, there be comments there.
Yeah, you can do that, but that sometimes is a pretty dangerous bet. Like you can, but if I was going to make a map of IT, that's the part that would say there be dragons. Because there may be comments. Somebody who wrote it may be great at commenting code, but they also might not.
They might be. They might be. So who is your favorite Doctor Who, and why is it Tom Baker? That's a big question. I do love Tom Baker. Tom Baker is my first. So I will always have a soft spot for him. I will always have a soft spot for 9 because that was a pretty heavy weight to put on someone's shoulders to bring back Doctor Who after all that time. And I felt like he did a very good job of that. I think 10 is great. Currently, 13 is my favorite. And it might just be because she's the latest, but I also like that she has more than one companion. And so far, anyway, none of it's been romantic. Like, I don't need a soap opera in my sci-fi. I watch soap operas for soap operas, and I watch sci-fi for sci-fi. And so I want more running down corridors and less longing looks across corridors. So I think like Tom Baker is like overall, like he was my first. That's gonna, so you know, that's always gonna count. But like there's a lot of stuff to love in New Who anyway, and so I have like warm fuzzies about all the new ones in some form or another, depending, because they all have a lot of aspects of old Who that I particularly appreciate. Great. We have another question about watchOS. You had to enable the screenshot feature before. Is that still the case?
I think it's on by default now, and the reason I think that is because I took one on accident the other day, and I know I didn't turn it on. So I'm not sure if maybe a watchOS upgrade enables that by default for you to be super helpful. But it is, I have not, like, I do remember going in and turning them off because I wear my watch down pretty far with the buttons over here, and I would tip my arm back and accidentally take a screenshot regularly. So I do remember turning it off, but like a week ago or so, I ended up accidentally taking one. So it's on now, and I may have to go figure out if I can turn that on or off. But it does come in handy in any case to be able to just to know that that's a thing that you can do, and that it's pretty easy because you just hit the buttons here and then you're done.
Excellent. Well, we have a comment. You never forget your first Doctor, and a question. How much documentation do you have on Zoolander?
You have seen, I would say 99% of it. There may be a GIF or two I downloaded that I did not actually use. And it was just because it all came out of the talk title, because I thought it sounded like a funny thing to name a talk and that maybe people would come enjoy that. And so I just thought it would be a good talk title, and like maybe if people come for the Zoolander gifts, they might stay and accidentally learn something about writing awesome documentation without it having to suck up your entire life, and maybe there will be better documentation in the world as a result.
Well, Jesse said this discussion is exactly what they miss about MacAdmins. Kudos.
Yay. That makes me very happy.
Very good. Very good. Well, that is all the questions we have for the moment. We'll give it another second to see if anything else trickles in. But I appreciate, Kelly, you taking your time to give us a presentation today. You've been an influence to me in the MacAdmins community since I started. So it's nice to have you back at the conference presenting again. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks for having me. And I will point out, I probably shouldn't say anything, but this is all part of my secret plan because I got to speak last year. And so next year, when we're all in person, I will be a 3-time MacAdmin speaker at the conference for the first time.
Yay. Sounds awesome.